Alright, what should end up being the last video here for Chapter 16 is about immunity and the body's defenses against infection. A couple of terms here, one that we've talked about already, pathogens, things that generate or give rise to pathologies or pathos, which is sickness. Pathogens include viruses, bacteria, fungi, and protozoans. Presence and multiplication of a pathogen in the body can result in what's called an infection. Now, viruses are not considered organisms. They are not made of cells. Their structure is simpler than that. They can only reproduce when they are inside a living cell using that cell's organelles. Viruses are just a nucleic acid, sometimes DNA, sometimes RNA, surrounded by a coat of protein and maybe something outside that, usually made of glycoprotein. One example of a DNA virus is the herpes virus. Some of the diseases that RNA viruses cause include the flu, polio, measles, the coronaviruses, which of course one of those, SARS-CoV-2, led to COVID-19. Like the other RNA viruses, SARS-CoV-2 is prone to mutations, which is why there have been so many different variations in COVID. Bacteria, though, are single, simple cells that cause many common infections, like staph and strep. And note the spelling of those. Staph, you see people lots of times say they have a staph infection and spell it S-T-A-F-F, which is wrong. That's staph is short for staphylococcus. And then strep, people mispronounce that as strip, as though it's an I, not an E. So let's not make that mistake anymore. Funguses can be single-celled or multicellular. Yeast infections, ringworm, athlete's foot, these are all fungal infections. And then less commonly, you've got protozoans, which are single complex cells that cause many diseases, including malaria. And pretty good bit of this when I have taught microbiology. We really go into a good bit more detail about these issues in that course, and I assume most of you will have to take it, so hopefully you'll get a better understanding from that. The ability of the human body to prevent the entry of pathogens or to destroy them if they do get into the body is called immunity. Some immune mechanisms are general in that they will protect against many types of pathogens, and this provides what's known as innate or non-specific defense. These general responses function the same way no matter what kind of pathogen or how many times you're exposed to it. Here's a list, but we're going to go over that here just very shortly. Other protective mechanisms are very precise, targeting specific pathogens with what's called adaptive defense or specific defense. And these are carried out by specialized lymphocytes that recognize foreign molecules by their non-self antigens. Again, antigens are markers on cell surfaces that identify a cell. And your body is supposed to know all of the markers on its own cells, what's called self antigens, so that it can realize when it sees a non-self antigen, it should take action against it. So together, the innate and the adaptive defense mechanisms protect us against infections. Innate defenses respond rapidly. Adaptive defenses develop more slowly. So let's look at this list of innate or non-specific defenses. The first is species resistance, and that refers to the fact that a species may be resistant to diseases that would affect other species. So some examples of that, the ones they give, they mentioned here that humans can contract the measles, other animals don't. Humans are resistant to canine distemper that can affect dogs. Um, some other examples. There's there's a virus that will cause tobacco leaves to get splotchy and dry out. It's called tobacco mosaic virus. You can't catch that as a human. You're not the right species. So there are a lot of examples of this. Anyway, second of the innate defenses is mechanical barriers. Your skin and mucous membranes that line the passageways of your respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive systems create mechanical barriers that simply prevent the entrance of some infectious agents and provide the first line of defense. As long as these barriers are intact, many pathogens are unable to get through them. Another protection is that the epidermis sloughs off, sheds, removing the superficial bacteria with it. And the mucus-coated ciliated epithelium in the respiratory system, in the trachea, that will line the respiratory passages. It will trap particles and sweep them out of the airways into the pharynx so that they can be swallowed. And once in the stomach acid will kill most of those pathogens. Hair will trap infectious agents associated with the skin and mucous membranes. You've got sticky mucus in the digestive and respiratory tracts. So also tears and saliva and urine wash away microorganisms before they can become firmly attached. So the mechanical barriers, the rest of the innate defenses discussed are part of the second line of defense. So those include inflammation. Familiar, I'm sure, with something becoming inflamed, swollen, red, hot. Inflammation is a reaction that produces localized redness, swelling, heat, and pain. The redness is because the blood vessels dilate, so you get more fresh blood flow into the tissue. With that, there's more volume of blood, so you get some swelling. This, along with increased permeability of the capillaries and subsequent leakage of protein-rich fluid into the tissue spaces, will cause swelling or edema. The heat is because the blood is being directed from the core of the body, which is normally warmer, to the surface. The pain is stimulation of the pain receptors, usually because of the pressure of the swelling. All right. White blood cells will accumulate at the sites of inflammation, where some of them will help to control pathogens by phagocytosis. They will simply engulf the pathogens, eat them, so to speak. Neutrophils are the first to arrive, followed by the monocytes. Monocytes can pass through capillary walls in a process known as diapedesis, and once they're out of a blood vessel, they're referred to as macrophages, and they will remove pathogens from surrounding tissue. With a bacterial infection, the resulting mass of white blood cells with the bacteria and damaged tissue can form the thick fluid known as pus. Fluids called exudates will collect in inflamed tissues. They have fibrinogen and other clotting factors, can stimulate formation of a network of fibrin threads in the affected region. Later, fibroblasts will arrive and secrete fibers around the area to enclose it in a sac of connective tissue. And this walling off the infected area helps to prevent the spread of the pathogens. All right. In the inflammatory response, here we just talked through that. Here it is, kind of nice and succinct. There are also chemical barriers. Gastric juice, stomach acid, has a protein splitting enzyme in it and a low pH because it's acidic, and that acid in the stomach is hydrochloric acid. So the combined effect of the digestive enzyme pepsin and the acid will kill most pathogens that enter the stomach. Tears have an enzyme called lysozyme that'll destroy certain bacteria on the eyes. And the accumulation of salt from perspiration will kill certain bacteria on the skin. Another chemical barrier, interferons, proteins that lymphocytes and fibroblasts produce in response to viruses or tumor cells. Interferon has been used as a treatment for certain tumors. Other antimicrobial biochemicals are defensins and collectins. Defensins are peptides produced by the neutrophils and other granular white blood cells. You remember those? And the intestinal epithelium, the urogenital tract, the kidneys, the skin. Recognition of non-self cell surface or viral particles will trigger expression of genes to encode the defensins. Some will make holes in the bacterial cell walls and cripple the microbes. Then collectins, as the name sort of implies, will collect. They will round up bacteria, yeasts, and viruses. They home in on slight differences in the structure and arrangement of the sugars protruding from the surfaces. Those are the antigens. The collectins detect not only the sugar molecules, but the patterns in which they're clustered and bind like Velcro to fabric, making the pathogens cling together. They collect them, and then a macrophage or other phagocytic cell can come along and grab a whole bunch of them at once. Complement system, a group of plasma proteins that circulate in the blood in an inactive form and become activated when they attach to the surface of foreign cells. Once activated, they interact in an amplifying series of reactions that enhance or complement the actions of both adaptive and innate immunity. So complement activation can rapidly occur in a classical pathway, as it's called, when complement protein binds to an antibody attached to a specific antigen. And we'll see a little more about that later in this section. Or there's an alternative pathway that's a little bit slower, triggered by exposure to foreign antigens in the absence of antibodies. So even if you haven't developed antibodies against a new antigen, complement will stimulate the inflammation, cause the cells to split, attract phagocytes, and enhance phagocytosis. There are also natural killer cells. This is a small group of lymphocytes, distinctly different from the ones that provide adaptive defense mechanisms. Natural killer cells defend the body against various viruses and cancer cells by secreting cytolytic, which they translate as cell cutting. I generally think of lytic as splitting, but anyway, cell splitting, cell cutting substances called perforins that will perforate the cell membrane and destroy that cell. Phagocytosis removes foreign particles from lymph as it moves from the interstitial spaces to the bloodstream. Phagocytes in blood vessels and tissues of the spleen, liver, and bone marrow usually remove particles that reach the blood. So chemicals released from injured tissues will attract these cells by chemotaxis. Neutrophils will engulf and digest smaller particles. Monocytes will phagocytize the larger ones. I've got a video here about phagocytosis. I don't think I've seen that one. Probably really straightforward. Again, monocytes can get out of the bloodstream and become macrophages, and they can either be free or fixed, meaning they can move around, or fixed means they're anchored in place. Macrophage can engulf up to 100 bacteria compared to only about 20 or so that a neutrophil could engulf. So again, monocytes are much larger, have a greater capacity to phagocytize pathogens. Fever, another innate defense. Fever begins as a viral or bacterial infection will stimulate lymphocytes to proliferate, producing a substance called interleukin-1, which is more colorfully known as endogenous pyrogen. In other words, the fire maker from within. So raises thermoregulatory set point in the brain, in the hypothalamus specifically, and maintains higher body temperature. Fever indirectly counters microbial growth because higher body temperature causes your liver and spleen to sequester or hold on to iron. That reduces the amount of iron in the blood. Bacteria and funguses need that iron for normal metabolism, so their growth and reproduction in a fever-ridden body can it'll slow down, may even stop. So you're just trapping the iron when you have a fever to keep the pathogens from being able to get to the iron to use it. All right. The next section is about the adaptive or specific defenses. And since we've already done between 15 and 20 minutes here, I'm going to stop here and pick up here in the next video.